All right, I'm going to show you a couple of simple 3D things. Let's find a fatter 3D thing. And let's make it a color. Okay, all this stuff, by the way, that's in effect, these are basically the same thing as filters in Photoshop. So I'll talk a little more about those later. But a lot of these, like this effect gallery, this stuff, it's stuff you got to play with. They kind of are what they are. You're going to have sliders and things, and you can move them around and do different things. That's why I don't spend a lot of time on them. 3D is a real easy one, so it's 3D effect. And I'm going to go to extrude and bevel. And this does exactly that. It just extrudes the image. Okay? Close that. Okay, so I'm going to hit preview here. And it already did this, its 3D thing. Okay? This block right here represents the orientation of it. So I can move this around. Okay? Now, this down here, extrude depth, does exactly that. So I can extrude it out more or less. Okay? Then there's a couple things down here. Right now it's on plastic shading. You can do wireframe, no shading, which doesn't make any sense really. Diffuse shading, and then back to plastic shading. And then here we can do different types of bevels. Okay? Pretty simple. You can adjust them here. You can adjust your, there it is. So it's going crazy now. Let's go backwards. Let's go cancel. Back up to effect, extrude and bevel. I'm going to spin it around. Oh, and then right here, it has cap or uncapped. So right now it's capped. I'm going to go uncapped. So now I can just see through it. So it literally just takes the end off of it. Okay? Now, I mean, that's a fairly simple tool. You can go in and play with it. You can do that with just about any shape. Okay? Now this one, oh, right, this one, what I did here, where's my, I started off with this image of a bottle, okay? And if you see what I did here, I just outlined one side of it, okay? And it lines up. Another thing here, you guys, if you go to, let's see if I can find it, right here, rulers, hide rulers because they're showing right now. All you have to remember is Command R for ruler, and they'll either disappear or show up, okay? And you can pull, you can do this in Photoshop too. You can pull guides out of here, okay? So I'm going to pull a guide here. You can see I've got it on a center axis, this top point and this bottom, okay? Now if I want to get rid of this guide, I can go up to View, Guides, Clear Guide, okay? So now everybody understands that idea. It's an extrusion, right? That we're pulling that thing out, okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to spin, rotate this around this center point, this whole thing, okay? So I'm going up to the same filter, and only I'm going to go revolve. And let's preview it. Okay, so see how it's doing this weird thing? All I have to do here is go from left edge, change it to right edge. So it needs to go from the right edge. It just does. And now we get to our bottle. Okay. Same thing here. We can move that around. Okay. Now another thing. So let's hit OK for now. Okay. Now something else I want to talk about. Now look at this also, by the way. Look, if I took this, let's put this ruler back. If I took this, see how it's flat up here, right there? Let's say I take, I'm going to dip this down a little bit. That's a sloppy version, but it's fine. Let's go back up here to 3D, revolve. back over to our right edge. I don't know why it defaults to the left edge. See how now, let's go okay. Now we've got a little divot inside of it, okay, because it revolved around that. Now, you can use this in a limited way in what you're working on, but I don't want you doing it the whole thing like this, which you can't. That's why I'm waiting this long to do this. You're already too far into it. So here's the trick with this, or one of the tricks. Go to Window, because all our palettes live there. I'm going to go to Image Trace. Okay, now what you need to do here, because I always go, okay, whenever I'm going to look for something to do this, my search is usually whatever object on white background, because it just makes my life easier. Otherwise, I'd have to go clip it in Photoshop or whatever. And then drop this little, I don't know why they hide this like this, but drop this little advanced button here. And right here it says ignore white, and you'll see why in a minute, okay? Then I'm going to go, I want to put it on color. Or let's put it on black and white for now. And I'm going to go preview. Okay, so what it does is it traces it, right? And then I can adjust it here how much detail I want. Now the reason that I do it, I'm doing it right now on black and white, is because one of the ways I would use this if I was doing what you guys are doing, I might go, I want a line of trees back there in the background, and I'll make one of these, I'll squatch it, stretch it, and make a whole line of trees back there, make them all one color where they're all purple way in the background. It gives me a nice silhouette back there, okay? I had a student last term, and she went into Illustrator. It was actually in digital drawing, but she was painting it. And we made one image of kelp, and then we made a silhouette out of it. And then she just repeated it, stretched it and stuff, and just put the kelp because this is an underwater scene, right? Now, you can also go here, go grayscale. Let's see if it'll just let me do it, yeah. And it'll pick up the grayscale, okay? And then again, you can adjust the level of detail here, okay? Or how much not detail. The other thing about this, you can get some nice stylized stuff, so it automatically looks stylized, okay? The other thing here is then you can go color, and it's going to usually, there you go, okay? Now, here's the other part of this. So let's say I like that, okay? I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to click this. I'm going to go here to Object, Expand, and it's going to give me this. I'm going to say, okay. And now it's just an object. Now, the reason that we did that ignore white thing is when I take it over here, it's sitting there by itself. It picked up some of this white. Now I can go in and adjust all that, okay, when I'm creating it. Does that make sense? This is why you do the ignore white. You don't want that white there. It kind of defeats the purpose. I usually use this kind of thing for like silhouettes and things like that, but I might use it for something like this because see how it looks like painterly already? So it gives it like there's a lot of things in Illustrator that you don't have to work very hard for. And one of them is kind of stylization. I think you're realizing even if you take a photo and you're tracing out the photo and creating your image from that, it automatically has a graphic look to it. Does that make sense? Okay, this is another tool for this. I don't want you guys using a ton of this in this, but like I said, if you want to do a backdrop of like shrubs or trees or something like that, that's fine. Okay? Let's get rid of that. Now here's another thing I want to talk about. Our color tools, okay? Now all these things are designed, these aren't designed to not learn color, they're designed to speed up your process, okay? So a couple things that we have here, so I've got this red picked, okay? So let's go to color, let's go to color guide. So this is gonna give me shades and tints, right? So it's going dark to light here, which is really handy. Otherwise you have to keep going into the color picker and picking that, right? But it also, what it's based on here is all this color theory stuff right here. So if I go complementary, it's going to give me red and green because those are complements, right? And then it's going to give me the tints and shades of those two things. Or I can come in here and go split complementary. These are all color theory terms, okay? Analogous, right? This is really nice because you're instantly harmonized. Does that make sense? One of the things I like it for a lot is monochromatic, because a lot of times I do the foreground and then I do the background super monochromatic. This just instantly gives me that. I don't have to figure it out. Okay, and that's under color guide. It's simple. Okay, now the other one here, and there's kind of two parts to this. Let's go to color themes. Okay, so this one right now is giving me a color wheel. Oops. Let's get rid of this. And it's doing the same thing basically. It's going analogous right now, okay? So let's just leave it on there for now. Right here, it's giving me my color wheel and showing me where I'm at here. Now I can take this and I can pull one of them off and see how it changes this, okay? Or I can take this one and pull it over here, whatever I want to do, and it's gonna adjust this for me, okay? It's got a lot of different color tools in here you can play with. You can save these palettes, okay? But you got to be signed into Creative Cloud. What else I want to say? So your themes would live here. You can explore here other people's palettes or different palettes they have. And then you go back to create here, and then let's see. I don't want to save. Now, where another thing, part of this sort of thing, I mean, that's fairly simple. It's kind of a variation on the other thing we just talked about. If you go here, let's go to this one. And let's just do a search on it, Adobe Color. This is really handy too. Adobe Color Wheel Schemes, okay? So it'll come up if you do a search. Now here's that same thing, okay? We can do the same thing here. It's got all these tools down here where I can play around with these and tweak them, okay? So if I tweak this, then it tweaks all the other colors based on whatever color theory thing I'm using, okay? But what I like about this is that I can come here and go right here to import image and go, I'm going to pick this illustration thing. It'll pull in my illustration, right? And it'll make a color palette based on that illustration, okay? Really handy if you're doing a project where they hand you the photograph or the illustration and you want to create a color palette that's going to be harmonious with it. Instantaneously done. Now, once you do this, if you're signed in, you can save this, save color theme, and you can pull it up in Photoshop. You can pull it up, I think all their stuff, okay? So this one, it picked a palette based on this, colorful, okay? This is picking all the bright colors, okay? So if I go down here, it's got all these bright colors, right? So on and so forth. Muted, picks all the muted colors. All this stuff is just designed to speed up your workflow, okay? Really important. One other thing I want to talk about is, now we talked about clipping mask, which is here, okay? Object, clipping mask, we talked about that yesterday, okay? But right below it is compound path. So sometimes I'm going to have an image, or I'm going to have a shape. So let's kind of do what we did today. Let's go. We were making a sprocket earlier. So let's just make kind of the same thing. I'm going to use my retransform tool we talked about yesterday. I'm going to do this crudely just so it's quick. I'm going to change the color of this so we can see it. Or maybe I'm not. And then I'm going to go to the rotate tool. I'm just going to put it here. We were making a sprocket earlier, so it's the same idea. That's close enough. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to get rid of this one. Okay, so now if I wanted to punch out this shape to create one shape, which I could do by going to Pathfinder and punching that out, and now it's a shape. It's only going to punch out one shape, okay? I want all these to become the shape that it punches out. So I'm going to select all of these, make them a little smaller. And I'm going to go to Object, right below Clipping Mask, and go Make, just like Clipping Mask, okay? Make sure this is on top. I'm going to select all of these now and go to this second one on my Pathfinder. And now it punched the whole thing out. Does that make sense? It's taking multiple shapes and turning them into one shape. That's what it's doing, okay? Comes in really handy, okay? Sometimes you just want to make one shape so it'll just fill with a color, and you just use it for that. It's not always for punching out a shape, but you're going to need this, okay? And you're also going to need it for making clipping masks. Because now if I take this shape and I put that underneath it, and I go to green, put this on top, and now I'm going to make this a clipping mask. Okay, so now I did that. Okay, so you can make complex clipping masks. You can make complex shapes to create other shapes with the Pathfinder, or you can just take a whole lot of shapes and combine them so when you fill them, the whole shape fills. Does that make sense?